As many of you may know, I am Ken Meach, Chair of Divert Nova Scotia's Board of Directors. Thank you for tuning in this afternoon. Due to COVID-19, we are conducting our meeting a little differently this year, online via Zoom. Although we lose the ability to network and engage face-to-face with each other, we also gain the opportunity to welcome others from afar who may not have been able to travel to Nova Scotia or travel to Toronto for our usual AGM format. There are always silver linings, or in our business, aluminum linings. To start, I would like to introduce the Board of Directors. Directors, please wave as I say your names. Board Vice Chair, Mark Brittany. Leland Anthony, Warden of the Municipality of the District of Yarmouth. He's not with us. Angus Bonneman, President of Bonneman's Wild Blueberries and Natural Food, or Natural Products. Kayla Farm, Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Canadian Stewardship Services Alliance. Carrie Gray, Production Shop Manager at Michelin North America. Craig Lake, Geotechnical Engineering Professor at Dalhousie University. Pam McGuinness, Councillor for the Municipality of East Hants. Phil Mooney, Deputy Mayor of the Town of Yarmouth. Bill Morash, Chief Executive Officer of Farnell Packaging. Nick Morito, Consultant. Laurel Shutt, Co-Director of Found Forgotten Food and Instructor, Curriculum Development at Dalhousie University's College of Sustainability. And Tom Taggart, Councillor for the Municipality of the Colchester. And our final member is Andrew Murphy, who represents Nova Scotia Environment on the board. At this time, I'd also like to, which I'm sure everybody knows, to introduce Jeff McCollum, the CEO of Divert Nova Scotia. I extend a warm welcome to our partners in waste diversion who are online with us today. There are representatives from Nova Scotia Environment, including the Honorable Gordon Wilson, Minister of Environment. The Minister will bring welcoming remarks from the province in a moment. Thank you for participating with us today, Minister. We also have representatives from municipal government, the Enviro depots, industry, and academics. Thank you all for signing in today. As demonstrated in the 2019-2020 annual report last year, or I should say, last year was another successful year for Divert Nova Scotia. Despite the coronavirus pandemic, which struck at the tail end of our fiscal year, our financial and operational performance was strong with positive, meaningful impacts on our environment. Last year, we invested in solutions for Nova Scotia's waste challenges. Our support for innovation saw funding for 4 research and development projects and 5 student research grants. We also hosted 2 summits, connecting people and ideas on reducing plastic packaging and educating municipalities on thermal treatment technologies. We also were a champion for recycling and demonstrated leadership through environmental stewardship. We provided $8 million to municipalities for local programs, enforcement, and collections. Our own recycling programs remain strong with an 81% recovery rate for beverage containers and almost 90% recovery rate for used tires. And we also continued our messaging that encouraged Nova Scotians to go beyond recycling, to stop waste before it starts. As a catalyst for change, we helped reach almost 75,000 Nova Scotians through regional education contracts, and we recognized and celebrated the environmental actions of 7 dedicated Mobius Award winners. I'm proud of the work completed in fiscal 2020 and the steps that Divert Nova Scotia has taken to protect our environment and build our economy. I'm very much looking forward to the coming year. On behalf of Divert Nova Scotia, I thank everyone for attending today and for the work you all do to help keep Nova Scotians focused on our environment. Before I welcome the Minister, I would like to mention a few housekeeping items in regard to Zoom. We are recording today's meeting and will make it available after the AGM. We shared a link to the Divert Nova Scotia website where you can view today's agenda and the 2020 annual report. The mics for all attendees are set to listen only mode during the meeting, except for the CEO and board of directors. Towards the end of the meeting, we have scheduled an open discussion. During this time, we will address the questions that were submitted prior to the meeting. Thanks to those who submitted questions in advance. If you have a question that comes up during the meeting, please submit it via the chat feature and we'll provide a response should time permit. Any questions that we do not get to, we will reply to all attendees via email after the meeting. Thank you. Did I get all the names out?
I believe so, Ken, yep.
Okay. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to welcome the Honorable Gordon Wilson, Minister of Environment, to bring remarks from the province of Nova Scotia. Minister Wilson. Go ahead.
Minister?
I don't know, can he hear?
We seem to have lost him. Just 1 second, please.
And thank you, Ken. Challenge to make sure that I'm.
Pardon? Oh.
Minister, you seem to be cutting out. We can't see or hear you currently.
I can't do sign language, folks. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. I'm going to try and reduce my screen. Sometimes that makes a difference. Ken, if I do that, and if you could just please bear with me for a second here.
Yeah, sure.
We can see you now.
So how's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to leave it right at that and won't touch anything. So my apologies. Good to see you, Jeff. So yes, thank you. It's always a challenge out here in this virtual world where we're learning a lot of different ways to do things, and really thank you very much for the invitation. And to start, I certainly would like to, especially seeing we're spread around in this province, to acknowledge the fact that we are on Mi'kmaq traditional territory, even more so than ever now that we're all in different places. Our First Nations people have taught us a great deal about respect for our planet. Lessons long ignored by many, but society is now trying to put that in place. Obviously, none of that's new to Divert. For 20 years now, Divert's been building a culture of recycling, teaching Nova Scotians how to recycle, to reuse and refuse. And I think I cannot say enough to commend you on that. I believe last year you received 384 million containers for recycling and 1.3 million passenger tires. So just in 1 year, that's an amazing feat. Your support, education, awareness, and research is greatly appreciated. And you've supported municipalities with approximately 5.4 million in funding and diversion credits this year. And I know that they really appreciate that support more than ever now. I certainly want to take this moment to recognize Jeff McCollum's leadership in all of this. Jeff's been focused on innovation, keeping Divert's costs down, offering the most value for delivering on its main mandate. And I believe that he's created a strong and engaging culture among his staff and does an excellent job in communicating with not just municipalities, but all the stakeholders. So Jeff, you and your team, it's important to know that keeping moving forward, everyone on board wants a national leader in protecting the environment, and we're lucky in having you doing that. And our government wants that also. That's why we passed this, a couple of pieces of legislation, I think, that reflect on that. Our coastal protection legislation and our sustainable development goals legislation certainly reflect the commitment the province has. We promised to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 53% below 2005 levels by 2030. And we've also committed to move Nova Scotia to a net zero carbon footprint by 2050, one of the first in Canada to do that. Of course, there's still a lot to do. I'm continuing to review the solid waste efficiency study presented to me by municipalities last fall. I certainly would invite municipalities to take steps to act on this important study as well. Now more than ever, it's more important to make sure that our solid waste system is cost effective for citizens who are paying for it. And certainly, as you know, municipalities have proposed extended producer responsibility on paper and packaging. And I think it's important that we work closely with our Atlantic counterparts, which I have had conversations on how we can coordinate that piece. I'll continue to work with the Canadian Council of Ministers of Environment on their zero plastic waste strategy. COVID-19 pandemic has created a great deal of challenges, obviously, but in this, there's also a lot of opportunities. We've learned a lot in the past few months, the difference between what we want and what we need. I believe many Nova Scotians have set new priorities, including a respect for the planet, that we will continue after this pandemic has ended. Innovation and education are hallmarks of Divert Nova Scotia. So I know we will rely on your partnership as we come through what comes at us next. So I certainly want to thank you again all very much for what you've done and what you continue to do to help Nova Scotia remain an environmental leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. We certainly appreciate it. And we look forward to continuing the very positive working relationship with you and your department. Did you have something, Jeff? Or
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to clarify, for people doing the question and answer if they're attending, there's a chat and a Q&A function. It's a Q&A function that you need to utilize. They're right next to each other. So just so people know, that's how they can post their questions. Thanks.
Okay. So with that, we'll now call the meeting to order. And the first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the AGM last year on June 27, 2019.
Mr. Chair, I move the Board of Directors recommend that the minutes of June 27, 2019 be accepted as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Phil, seconded by Pam, McGinnis. Okay, you all heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Now, next, number 5 is the presentation of the audited financial statements by Grant Thornton for the year ended March 31st, 2020.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Can everybody hear me?
Yes?
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Everybody else can hopefully hear me as well. If I could just get a couple thumbs up, maybe. Good. All right. So I'm Laura McLaughlin from Grant Thornton, and I am here to present the audited financial statements for March 31st, 2020. They are included in the AGM package. So on page 20 is the beginning of the financial statements. So this is the Auditors Report on page 20. So I'll just take you through that, and then I'll take you through a couple of key points throughout the statements, and then that will be the financial statements for March 31st. So of course, addressed to the Board of Directors of the Resource Recovery Fund Board, Inc. and Resource Recovery Fund, operating as Divert Nova Scotia. So the first two paragraphs outline our opinion. We have audited the accompanying combined financial statements of the Resource Recovery Fund Board, Inc. and Resource Recovery Fund, operating as Divert Nova Scotia, referred to as Resource Recovery Fund, which comprise the combined statements of financial position as at March 31, 2020, the combined statement of operations, changes in net resources, changes in net financial resources, and cash flows for the year then ended, and a summary of significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying combined financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Resource Recovery Fund Board, Inc. and Resource Recovery Fund as at March 31, 2020, and its results of operations, its changes in net resources, and changes in net financial resources and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So that is what we call an unqualified or a clean opinion on the financial statements. The next paragraph outlines our basis for our opinion. So we are required to conduct our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described under another section within this report. And we are independent of the entity in accordance with ethical requirements under the standards as well, which we outline. We believe the evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide our basis of opinion. We do have an other matters paragraph as well, which identifies that in the main financial statements, page 16 is presented for purposes of additional information and schedules thereon, which are not necessary to make up the main body of our audit, but it is there for further information. Then we have the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance outlined in our auditor's report for those financial statements. So stating the fact that the statements are management's responsibility. They're responsible for the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. The internal controls that management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of those financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. As well, in preparation of the combined financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the entity's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing any applicable matters related to going concern, and the going concern basis of accounting, which is the normal basis of accounting that you would follow. Those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the entity's financial reporting process. So on to page 21, the second page of the Independent Auditor's Report outlines our responsibilities as auditors of the statements in a fair amount of detail. So our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance whether the combined financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue the auditor's report that includes our opinion. So reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if individually or in the aggregate they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions of the users taken on the basis of these combined financial statements. So then the next items really identify some of the detail that we do when we perform our audit. We are required to exercise professional judgment as well as professional skepticism when we're out completing our audits. And the bullets there are some of the individual, which I won't go through everyone today, but some of the individual items that and process that we go through when we are completing our audit. And of course, at the end of the day, we communicate with those charged with governance. So that would be the audit committee as well as the board regarding, among other matters, the planning and the scope of our engagement, the timing of our audit, any significant findings, and any deficiencies within the internal controls that are identified. The date of approval on these financial statements by the board of directors is May 28th, 2020. So that's the 2 pages that really belong to the auditors. The remaining part of the statements is our management statements and the board statements. So we'll flip to the combined statement of operations on page 22 in your package. And this is for the year ending March 31st, 2020. So the results overall, so you have your budget for the year as well as your actuals in the highlighted column for 2020 and your comparatives for 2019. So overall revenues came slightly above budget and very close to prior year. So $59,769,000 in overall revenues for the organization for the year. Your expenses, which are categorized and have further detail on pages 14 and 15 in the original statements, but attached to this report throughout the latter pages, I'll say, broken down between operating and admin, and then your other expenditures. So overall, you have $52.5 million in expenses this year, and very close again to the budgeted number for the year and slightly over prior year, which would make sense in relation to some of the activity that occurred during the year. So at the end of the day, you have excess of revenue over expense, $7,222,000, so a fairly healthy result, as was previously mentioned, for the 2019-2020 year. And then below that line, you have what is shown that is available and to be paid out in accordance with the agreement. to the municipals as well as the Nova Scotia environment. So there's $5 million for the regular solid waste diversion credit, $1.2 million for Nova Scotia environment, and then an amount for the current year for an allocation of $450,000. At the end of the day, after those are allocated out, we have an excess of revenue over expenditure position of $505,000 for the year. Down below that line, it really shows the beginning of period and end of period net resources that the entity has. So $9,739,000 at the end of the year. The next page, page 23, is your combined statement of financial position. So really a snapshot as of March 31st, 2020. Of course, with your comparatives again, as the overall position at the end of the year. So your total financial assets, $38.8 million. You can see the breakdown in the various categories. And then your financial liabilities that are owing at the end of March, $33,399,000. After that, you have your net financial resources totaling, leaving you with a total of $5,444,000. And then an amount in your non-financial assets, what we call non-financial assets, so prepaids and your capital assets, $4,294,000. So when you add your 5.4 above plus your non-financial of 4.3, you again end up with your net resource position at the end of the year of $9,739,000. So a healthy net resource position for the Divert Nova Scotia at the end of the year. So the next couple of pages, I won't go through in detail, but a breakdown of your net financial resources is available on page 24. Page 25 shows your statement of cash flows for the year, so where cash was provided from during the year. So if the number is a positive, it was basically an inflow of cash, and if it has a bracket around it, it's considered a use of cash as of the end of March. So if you're looking at this, you can see that there was a large amount that went into investments from the cash during the year, so that would be considered a use of cash. It makes up the largest difference between the change in your cash value at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, what is sitting on your statement of financial position above. So onward to the next couple of pages, page 26 and on, are the notes to the financial statements which support the numbers that we went through on the main body of the statements, and all within the accounting policies under the public sector accounting standard guidelines, which is what you are required to follow. And there's been no new events or transactions or standard to play in 2020. So let's go down pages to page, let me get there, page 31. So one new note is the last note, really starts on page 30, goes into page 31, is your subsequent event note or your event note around COVID. Of course, we do have some disclosure in there as COVID happened very close to the end of the year, and the impact started to be impacting organizations towards the end of March and into April, of course. So there is disclosure around that, the fact that it happened, what your organization has done to mitigate anything in and around COVID, and how they are continuing to keep going. So of course, as auditors, we have to assess with some rigor around that, and if there is any further considerations that would cause us to go down look further down the going concern. So for Resource Recovery Fund Board, basically activity has been put in place to mitigate or minimize any impact to your organization. So there's appropriate disclosure there is what we have determined. And the following statements on page 31 and the next couple of pages are the supplementary information and combined statements that tie to some of those numbers that were on the statement of operations. So those are there for your information as well. And that is the audited statements for March 31st, 2020. So I'll hand it back over to Ken.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Is there any questions, observations? If not, I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, the Board of Directors recommend that the audited financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2020 be accepted as presented.
Thank you. Seconded.
Second.
Calla? Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Like-minded? Any questions? Approved. Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura.
My pleasure.
Now, the next item is the appointment of the auditors. So we need a resolution or approval.
Mr. Chair, the Audit Committee recommends that Grant Thornton be appointed Auditor of Divert, Nova Scotia for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Been moved, seconded. Seconded by Pam McGinnis.
Yep.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is number 7, the nomination and election of directors. Reappointment of Laurel and Tom for their second 3-year term.
Mr. Chair, as recommended by the Executive Committee, I would move that reappointments of Ms. Laurel Shute and Mr. Tom Taggart as directors of Divert, Nova Scotia for a second 3-year terms.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second? Seconded by Pam McGinnis. You've all heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And the next is number 8, which is the CEO's remarks.
Thank you, Ken. Good afternoon and welcome Minister Wilson, board members, Enviro depots, government representatives, our partners in academia and industry, the Divert Nova Scotia team, as well as everyone else joining us virtually. While we're presenting the results of the fiscal year ended, the last few months have seemed like a year in itself. With the crises and challenges we faced and overcame, I am confident of our future and our ability to move forward now more than ever. An integral part of our evolution is Divert Nova Scotia's new strategic plan, which was the focus of much work this year and will be ready to launch in 2020. The 5-year plan includes working more closely with municipalities to help them increase the efficiency of their facilities and programs, greening Divert Nova Scotia's operations to reduce our carbon footprint, and driving greater innovation and efficiencies in partnership with depots. Consultation with our stakeholders this year confirmed that Divert Nova Scotia is a trusted leader in waste diversion, and we should take on a stronger advocacy and leadership role on critical issues facing the system. We look forward to this new challenge. Divert Nova Scotia continued to build important relationships with like-minded partners this year. Our Discovery Center sponsorships, annual Mobius Awards, and continuing Summit Series help Divert Nova Scotia build deeper connections, expand our reach, and reinforce our leadership in the waste diversion sphere. Our focus on reduce remained a primary theme throughout our education and communication efforts. For a second year, our reduce advertising and social media campaigns targeted Nova Scotians with important messages about single-use plastics and food waste. The campaign's reach and the public response were very encouraging. However, with the recent public health protocols implemented to protect everyone and slow the spread of COVID-19, there have been impacts to the sustainable practices of Nova Scotians. We'll be looking to focus our research and education efforts in helping Nova Scotians return to their environmental ways as soon as feasible and can continue to build our culture of reduce. We've also identified the need to better enhance our digital capabilities across the organization, and we see an opportunity to enhance our online presence in educational tools. Divert Nova Scotia's financial and operational performance was strong in 2019-20, with total revenues of almost 60 million. Our beverage container recycling system, the economic driver of our business, created over just 47 million in revenues. The tire collection program also had a solid year with 1.4 million in passenger tire equivalents diverted from landfills. As a result, we were able to partner with the Discovery Center in an exciting new Divert Nova Scotia Ocean Action Zone exhibit with education initiatives for students, and also to support the Clean Foundation's Clean Leaders internship program. Like many organizations in Nova Scotia, our operations were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, which struck at the end of the fiscal year. Although our planning and operations were interrupted, we continue to adapt to ensure we protect our employees and partners. We anticipate that going forward, our revenues, processes, and operations in 2020-21 will be affected by the pandemic. However, predicting the breadth and scope of these impacts is challenging. Divert Nova Scotia has a strong financial foundation, deep experience, and an exceptional network of employees, partners, and stakeholders. I'm very optimistic that Divert Nova Scotia has a robust future. I want to thank our inspiring Divert Nova Scotia employees who work tirelessly to deliver our mission and waste diversion goals. It has been a challenging time, and you've all risen to the occasion. I'd also like to thank our board of directors for their continued counsel, guidance, and steady governance. Thank you for taking the time today to join us online and celebrate another successful year for Divert Nova Scotia. I'm excited about the opportunities planned for the coming year, and I appreciate your continued partnership as we move future forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. We seem to be able to move along much faster at this session than we were at the board meeting. So we're now at number 9, the Recognition and Service Award. Well, initially, what I'd like to do is, on behalf of Divert Board of Directors and staff, we want to recognize and thank Bill Morash, Nick Morito, and Leland Anthony for their significant contribution to Divert Nova Scotia. They individually contributed special expertise to the development and expansion of Divert as we move forward to influence and facilitate Nova Scotians in addressing the issue of waste management and reducing waste. It has been a pleasure to work with each of you, and thank you for departing your wisdom and experience. Thank you very much. Bill, Nick, and Leland. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to say a few words. Very sad to see you all go, quite honestly, both personally and professionally. You've been excellent board members, made great contributions to the board. I hear a lot of times that I have a great board, and I do have to echo that. I've worked with others, and you're very balanced in your approach. You all have different interests or represent different interests, but you bring that balance and always had the best intentions for Divert Nova Scotia moving forward, and treated myself and all the staff respectively. So your contribution will be missed. I would ask you to please keep in touch, and all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How do we get our screen back here?
Can you advance a slide to the next one, Carolyn? I believe? Yes. So we're all
Are you going to do that, Jeff? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're also recognizing long service employees, and this year we have one, Paul Buffett, who's our IT coordinator. You see his picture on the screen there, 10 years of service. It's hard to believe. I remember when Paul started. He's the one that we lean on when we're all having those problems, so he's the fixer. I like to joke that it doesn't work in my office until Paul walks in the room, and then it miraculously fixes itself. And certainly in this day of operating virtually, we rely on Paul and his skills more than ever. And I just wanted to thank him for his service and thank him for staying with us. So Paul, congratulations on your 10 years, and I look forward to the next 10. Thank you.
Yep. So the next item is number 10, I guess, which is open discussion. You got some
That's
questions?
right. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've got the Q&As here. We did have 2 that were submitted in advance, so I think we'll start off with those. The first one is, what is the status of EPR and plastic packaging? Specifically, we can't speak to that. Obviously, my understanding the department's working, still reviewing and looking at the options. I expect that the pandemic was a little bit of a pause on that, but I know from my discussions, they're working hard on that. And looking at the options. I also know that the municipalities have done quite a bit of work amongst themselves and submitted proposals and considerations to the Department of Environment to take a look at. So that is where that one is at. We do know we held a plastics packaging waste summit back in February. We had all stakeholders at industry, municipal, provincial government, academia, and there was very strong support that came out of that for an EPR program around printed paper and packaging. So that's as much as I can provide at this stage. Perhaps at some point we could look to have the department address that question. The next question is a bit more straightforward. Is it possible to get a copy of the annual report, as there could be questions concerning the financials? So the annual report isn't released until we have the AGM. So it is on our website. You can download the full annual report, including the financials, and that is at our website at divertnovascotia.ca. So those were the 2 submitted in advance, Mr. Chair, and I see a few popping up. Is there an opportunity to launch a deconstruction textiles program to increase jobs and diversion through realignment of tip fees and increased regulation? So if I'm okay, Mr. Chair, answering that, or? Yeah, carry on, yeah. So I think we're always open to looking at the innovative ideas in terms of, of options around diversion. And I know there's been some innovative models around tip fees, but also related to different technologies. So I think we're always open to discussion. I can't say that we can do that. And obviously it would require the cooperation of a lot of partners, the municipalities and potentially the province as well. So, and if I move to the next question, given that beverage container deposit funds much of Divert's operations, that the new 5-year plan suggestions appear to be adding costs, will depots be able to expect a fair handling fee as the depot costs have risen? Minimum wage, insurance, utility costs, etc. Depots have also been impacted by revenue losses during COVID-19. Hopefully depots will not be forgotten. I guess the answer to that is certainly we're looking to meet with the depots and come to an agreement on handling fees. And we'll be taking all aspects of the impacts to the depots into consideration, as well as those to the organization to move forward. I might add too that during the pandemic, we did offer some assistance to depots that had to close in the form of repayable loans to allow them to bridge the season. So certainly we are aware of the depots and their needs, and we'll be looking to have a discussion with them in the very near future. And I believe that may be it. Just let me check. I believe that is all the questions that have been posted, Mr. Chair. And
Thank
if there's
you.
any other or anything else?
I would just, I had forgot to, Nick, Bill, did you want to take a few moments to share your thoughts?
No,
Ken, it's Nick here. I purposely let Leland go first at our board meeting because I knew I could just tell the rest of the board that I have to echo his comments. But in all sincerity, just want to thank Jeff 6 years ago for believing I could add value to the board. And just want to thank his staff and especially Angie as well. Thank you.
I'd like to echo both, mostly Leland's as well as Nick's brief comments as well. Certainly, it's been a pleasure serving on the board with board members of very diverse and remarkable experiences. We've certainly worked well together, everyone I had dealings with, and it's been a pleasure. And the certainly competent and engaged staff at Divert. I think everything is in very good hands, both at a board level and the staff competence level. And I certainly appreciate all the assistance I've had. And it's been a pleasure working with everyone.
Well, thank you, Bill and Nick, for your contribution. As I said earlier, it's been a pleasure working with you both, and you really have made a difference. So is there anything else, Jeff, or is that the end of the
No,
meeting?
we don't have any more questions, and that's really, we're at just the closing remarks from you, Ken, and I think a motion to adjourn.
Is there anybody else of the board member that have anything they'd like to share, or? Okay. Well, from my point of view, it's going to be very brief, but it's been a long day, as we all know. And it's unfortunate that we couldn't do this in a live setting, but anyway, that's the time that we're in. Anyway, I just wanted to indicate that I look forward to working with the board and staff and DOE and Nova Scotians to expand our objectives in addressing solid waste over the next year. And I think we have in recent times started to expand, I guess, in terms of our reach. So I think we have a lot of opportunity, I guess, if you will, to hopefully continue to expand as we go down the road and work with all Nova Scotians. Okay, thank you. And with that, I want to thank our guests as well for participating, and in particular the minister who took the time to share his thoughts and comments with us. So if there's nothing else, I guess that's a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
It's been moved. Seconded? Seconded, Mark? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Safe travel.
Hopefully seeing you all soon.
Hi, Bill. Bye, Nick.
Bye now.
Take care.